Hi, everyone. We are coming to you live. I am here with Barbie Jimenez, and we are setting up, and I think we are live, so I will get started. Hi, everyone. This is Faiza Liban. I am coming to you live, this time with another expert on conscious issues, and God knows we need this more than anything else during this time. I am told that our parenting page is slowly becoming the hub, and it is providing you information from all over the world on mindfulness and on this pandemic. And it is not only heartwarming to hear that, it's very encouraging. So thank you for this support. And I would, without much further ado, I would love to welcome Barbie Jimenez. Barbie, welcome.
Hi, Faiza. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's my honor to have you here with us, Barbie. And Barbie is an educator. She has 24 years of early education experience. So please pay attention, because she will have a lot of wisdom around education. And she's a parent. She's mom of two. So she will have wisdom around that. She is also a certified conscious parenting coach, and she has been certified by Dr. Shefali's Institute. So she has a lot of nuggets. And for those of you out there who value Dr. Shefali's work, you have a parent coach here who's trained directly by her. I am so excited to have you here, Barbie, and I'd love to just dive in, because I know that this is what people come here for. This is what they love. They want to hear what you have to say and hopefully participate. And there will be an option to ask questions. Barbie, thank you for joining me. So first of all, I wanted to express my gratitude. And you and I have a long history now, long being a few years. We met through Dr. Shefali's work, and our paths have crossed since then. We've done Evolve together. We've done a lot of courses by Dr. Shefali together. And here you are. I am really excited to have you, because we are navigating a lot of different emotions and issues globally at the moment. And how do we navigate this as parents? You are a conscious parenting coach. The main subject unfolding for us right now, the biggest topic, is back to school. Every parent I know out there is figuring out what to do for their children. Do I go online? Do I keep them at home? How can we be conscious about the process of sending our kids back to school? And how do we navigate these choices? How can we make the best choices and the most conscious choices for our children?
Well, Faiza, I truly think that one of the beautiful things that this pandemic is bringing to us is an inspiration and a challenge to question everything, to question our beliefs, to question institutions such as education and the system of education in this country. And when we begin to do that, then we can really become conscious, right? We could really dig into what are the fears that we have about our children not going back to school? Yeah. What are the fears that we have about homeschooling? What are the fears we have about unschooling, right? So really dig deep and figure out, what are these fears that we have, and what are our beliefs around them? So what does learning mean? How does learning happen, right? Yeah. These could be such different answers for each family, not only each family, but like you and I have spoken, each child within the family, right? My daughter, who's 17, is looking forward to going back to school, and as a senior in high school. And she would love to do it in person, but doesn't really, she's like, okay, so if it's online, it's online. I still get to hang out with my friends, right?
Yes.
Where my son, who's 14, is going into his first experience with the public school system and is excited too. But I'm just sitting and waiting, because he's never loved school. And I want to educate myself about other options, so I can have those ready to go, so that if he's like, this is not working for me, we have options. We have plans. I think parents I myself, even as an educator and as a conscious parent, I didn't realize for a long time that we had options to not necessarily send our children to school, right? I didn't know that legally we had the option to not send them to school and what that looked like, right? And so I also thought that homeschooling meant just recreating school at home. And that just seems so overwhelming to me because I can teach a bunch, of children. I had classes of kindergartners of 25 children and it was all good. But when it came to trying to teach my children, it was not going to happen. It was not working, right? The dynamics of the relationship was just completely different. And realizing that, wait, homeschooling doesn't have to look like a 6-hour school system that you're doing at home, right? So
Yes.
really challenging ourselves to dig deep and figure out, what do we believe about school? Our school system, unfortunately, is very antiquated. Hasn't evolved much from when it was started, and the purpose of it was to train factory workers. And our children are not going to become factory workers, right? Our children need social emotional education. Our children need critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, creative skills, creativity, how to think outside the box. They learn through experiences. And I really feel our education system right now falls short of that. And going online can make those things even more challenging, unless you have, an educator who is willing to figure out new ways to make that happen. Because honestly, when we went online for the first time back in March,
Yeah.
I got to see two completely different ways of going online. My daughter was a junior in the public school system and barely did anything, and barely had to go online, and was just given assignments to complete on her own and turn in electronically. My son was in an alternative school, a private school, teeny tiny little school. And this teacher really embraced the technology and was live with them, teaching just like if he would have been in the classroom, and giving them experiences. And actually, my son was more motivated to learn that way than going
Yeah.
to school. It was incredible to see the shift. Even the teacher and I had conversations around seeing the shift in him. So really getting out of our heads and our beliefs that the same thing works for everybody. By all means, if recreating the school system and the school day that we have now works for you and your child, and they're thriving, and you're not butting heads all day long, and you're not fighting all day long about trying to control the way they learn and making them do it, by all means, go for it. I think that's the most important part, is how do you continue to create a home environment that fosters connection, that fosters mutual respect, and then on top of that, you're learning. Because
Beautiful.
you could be gardening, you're learning. You could be reading a book or listening to an audiobook or even watching a YouTube video. You're learning. Living life, you're learning.
Yeah.
But we have these concepts that learning means there's a teacher full of information, pouring it all out into our
Yes.
children who have empty brains. Trust me, they
Yes.
don't have empty brains. and give them life experience, cook together, do
Yeah.
things you enjoy with
Yeah.
them, right? And get to know them and what do they enjoy, and foster that. And that's, in my post, I wrote that I didn't know much about unschooling, right?
Yes.
I thought unschooling just meant not doing school and letting your child do whatever they wanted. And boy, was I wrong. I fell in love with unschooling when I read about it. And I kind of wish I could go back and redo it, with my kids. But,
Yeah.
and I'll say this caveat, even if you are not considering unschooling, even if you're not even interested, let's say, in unschooling, I still recommend you read the book, Radical Unschooling by Dana Martin. Why? Because what I found in the book is that it was all about connection, respect, and how to foster your children's interests. And it helped me to question so many parenting belief systems, right?
Yes.
And so most of us are on this authoritarian, we know the authoritarian behavior modification, rewards and punishment, right? We were raised that way, most of us. And even as a teacher, I was trained that way, right? And that's what society, and culture teaches us to do.
Yeah.
So we know that side. This takes us all the way to the other side, to the radical, because not only is she unschooling, she's radically unschooling, right? She
Yes.
pushes the limits further. So this takes us all the way to the other side. And so it creates just more possibilities, right? For us to expand our beliefs with. And I'm not saying we have to go to either side. Find your balance for your family somewhere in that range from authoritarian to unschooling, right?
Yeah.
And find all the possibilities, because the questions that came up in that book that she talks about, and it's an easy read. I read it in 3 days.
3 days.
It's 3 days. It's
And you're
short
looking
and
at
it's
this,
easy.
Barbie. You're also looking at this from the lens of a mother. You're looking at this from a lens of an educator who's been teaching in our traditional system for more than 20 years. And now you're looking at it as a conscious parent coach. So you're also looking at it through another lens, through the lens of a mother whose child is in a public school system and is a high schooler and has gone through the entire system. So I feel like you really do offer insights that are really balanced, because you're able to compare and you're able to say what's really working for your child. Because that's what I'm hearing right now.
Yeah. And honestly, like my children went through their elementary school year. So when my daughter, who's now 17, was 4, I put her in a preschool that I thought was great, right? I was still authoritarian. I was still with that teacher mentality of behavior modification, rewards and punishment, right? And so I put her in this preschool, and it was a well-established, well-known, sought-after preschool. Well, it was a school, but it was a full elementary school, but she was entering as a pre-K 4. And she was crying every day. And it wasn't even a full day program. I would pick her up like at 12:30, and I would put her in the car, and she would say, "Don't talk to me. I have a headache."
I laugh because the language that they communicate with us when they're saying something completely different it's unbelievable. Yes.
Right. And so that was my first, in a way, awakening, because that was my first, like, oh my gosh. And the teachers were like, "Trust me, as soon as you leave, she stops crying. Look, peeks through the window. Don't let her see you. You'll see she stops crying." I was like, it's now November, and my daughter's still crying every day and still coming home angry. And yes, I would peek through the window and she seemed fine, right? My daughter's also very much has always been very politically correct. Like she knows how to work the people around her, the adults around her, and conform to what they need in that, right? So I knew all that. So I was like, no, this is not working for us. And I had read a book called Indigo Children, and it had literally one sentence about Montessori education, which I had heard of in my training, right, in my education to be an educator, and Waldorf education, which I had never heard of. I looked it up, and there was a school locally. So we went to visit. My 4-year-old daughter, my two at that time almost 2-year-old son in a stroller. We walked around the school for a visit. She said to me, "Mommy, this is the school I want to go to. And she never cried. One day. Not even the first day where the teacher she had met was late and they had to have another teacher come in until that teacher arrived. She still didn't cry. She felt safe.
What a
So,
great example, though, of
yeah,
honoring your child, because
right.
this is what it boils down to for me. And the reason I posed that question, I want to recap a little bit everything you just said, and hopefully I
Okay.
remember it all. So if you're watching, I want to really go back to what Barbie just shared with us. First of all, know your child. Every child is different. If one of your children is thriving in the classroom setting, your other child might not. And both your kids might be thriving in a classroom setting versus online, or they might be thriving online versus in the class. Know your child. Also know your family. What can your family handle? Look at your family dynamic. Are you able to create an environment, a learning environment for your children at home where they're thriving? Because if you cannot provide that environment, it's not the right decision for you to be having your children at home. I want to go back even further to another thing that another point that Barbie made. She said, you have to watch your conditioning. What have you been conditioned to believe about education? And we're being invited to rethink our own belief systems. So look at your own belief systems. What have you been conditioned? We have our generational conditioning, which is what an aspect that I believe, Barbie, you were referring to, which means we are doing things the way our parents did, and the way their parents did, and the way their parents did since the beginning of formal education. But then we have our collective conditioning, and this is where your teacher training is also embracing some of the conditioning that we've had for generations without questioning what this, who really this benefits. So hopefully you got all those nuggets, because they were pretty big. Challenge your own belief systems, know your child, make a decision that is balanced for you and your family, and know what environment you can provide for your child when you're deciding what environment your child should be learning in.
And challenge what learning means.
And challenge what learning means for you. Barbie, could you elaborate on that?
Right. So if we're looking at the school system, right, we're typically ingrained to believe that learning means, like I said, an adult with all the knowledge, putting that information into our children. But
Correct.
really, does every child need to learn exactly the same thing at exactly the same age and in exactly the same depth? Right? Like, when some of my kids now in high school ask me for help with their homework at times, and I'm like, I don't, and my kids are like, wait a minute, you have a master's degree and you don't know how to do this algebra 2 problem? And I'm like, and they're like, what is the point? I'm never gonna use this, right? I'm learning this for what reason? As soon as I take the test, I'm gonna forget it. And I tell them, you're absolutely right. This is the system. You can be a part of it or you cannot. But this is the system that we live in right now. So I always am talk to my children very frank about, and their grades, I don't get hung up on them. I say, do the best you can.
Yeah.
Do the best you can. They don't define you.
Yes.
Right?
That's
Don't stress over them.
That's a very
Don't.
important point, because based on what you just said, we need to be careful about how we define learning and what it means to us. We are not raising sheep, and our children are not their grades. Sure, we are required as parents to raise children that are ready for the world. We are raising adults, and we have to remember that we need to prepare them for the world. But the way to a world that serves them and the rest of the world is never about just the grades. You know, if you raise a child that is less concerned about grades but more concerned about learning, I think that's a winning combination. So as we are talking about learning, and many school districts, if you're following the news or if you're following our page, you will see that this is unfolding. It's by the minute. Things are fluid, but that's my puppy. As you watch the world unfold, its plans for education, you'll notice that a lot of school districts are choosing to start the year online. This brings us back to online learning. We've looked at the other facets, which is unschooling, homeschooling, and the different types of homeschooling. We're going to transition now to just the words online learning. How can we create a conscious and healthy relationship with technology, Barbie? Because here we are, we've spent years as parents, maybe fighting technology. I don't fight technology. I tend to use it as a tool and hope to impart that to my kids. But even I, as conscious as I'm striving to be, I'm having trouble with ensuring healthy consumption of anything online, whether it's a good course, whether it is something awesome for them, or the fact that our kids are socializing on a screen now that we're social distancing. So a part of me is a little bit out of my depth, and I'm pretty sure a lot of parents are out there. How can we have a healthy relationship with technology at a time when we really do not have a choice but to be using technology along with our kids?
So, I go back to the same question, the same point. It's about our fears and our beliefs, questioning and becoming intimate with our fears and our beliefs. Because like you said, we fear technology a lot, it was a challenge for me. I went down that rabbit hole of fear, of thinking that this was the dark side coming to take my child's brain. And every single generation has had that aspect to deal with, right?
Yes.
It's been radio, it's been TV, then it's the iPhone, then it's the social media, then it's the computers, the video games, right? At one
Yes.
point I heard it was comic books. Comic books actually had like a restriction, like experts told parents not to let their children read comic books for more than a certain amount of time because it was going to hurt them, right? Yet here we still are. So navigating technology and I even question, what is a healthy relationship for technology? Just like there's no perfect answer with education, there's no perfect answer that fits every child and every family and every child within each family for technology, right? There's so many different variables that go into it. So again, I go back to what I said earlier: connection, mutual respect, and your mindset, right? Which are your beliefs and fear around technology. Because if you are living like I was, from fear that this technology was going to hijack my child's brain,
Yes.
that's all I could see. And that's the energy that I was bringing to every single conversation, interaction. Every time I saw my child on technology, that's what I was bringing to the conversation
Yeah.
and to the space, that fear. And they pick up on that and they will fight back because and then from my fear, what was I trying to do? Control it, right? Because that's what happens when we fear something or it triggers a reaction within us, that which is your key to know that you're in fear. When you have a big reaction to something, sit with it, you're in fear. There's a belief system there that's, if you go back far enough, it has to do with a fear of something, right? So if I'm in fear, biologically even speaking, our brains are in fight or flight if we're in fear, or
Yes.
if we're in our emotions. So until we can calm ourselves down, we can't even access problem solving, critical thinking, right? We can't even empathize with our child because we are not in our prefrontal cortex. So
Yeah.
biologically speaking, we can't even go there. So first and foremost, it's calming ourselves down and
Yeah.
and becoming aware. And then connecting with your child. I was so fearful of Fortnite when my son was playing, and it was a shooting game, it's a killing game, are they going to end up being mass shooters, right? We go there, we go down those rabbit holes in our fear. And I sat down to watch him play and connect with him. And I started to notice, wait a minute, he's working with a team. He's problem solving. And he's being the leader of this team, which in real life, he wasn't going there. He was a follower, right? But this allowed him to step into that role and try it on. The amount of I tried to play a game, I couldn't even get my car to move. The amount of eye-hand coordination that goes into these games. So it's changing our mindset around it, right? And here's what it boils down to. Our children are interested in several things, technology being just one of those things. And if we're constantly telling our children, that's crap, like I was doing, that's bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What do they hear? There's a part of me that's crap. There's a part of me that's bad. Because that's part of them. That's their interest. How would you feel if something you're super interested in, someone came to you and told you that was crap? That's bad.
Yeah.
Faiza, when have you felt like the most connected to somebody? Typically, it's when they get you or you share the same interest, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, yes.
So can we be that for our children, even around technology? Can we connect with them and accept this part of them? I'm not saying let them be on it 24/7, right? But just realize that it is an interest that they have, and this is the age of technology. Yeah. So shifting, like you said, this is a tool. Yes, for school, it comes across as a tool. I know that video games and social media don't necessarily seem like tools, and okay, yeah, they're not tools in that, but they're interests. Yes. And especially middle schoolers and high schoolers, socialization is extremely important. And this is the way they socialize right now, right? And so
that's a great point.
We're hurting them if we're saying you cannot socialize. This is the way they're socializing right now.
Yes, that's so some great nuggets there. I'm going to recap. I like to do that so that we can take as much as we can from all your wisdom. So again, to reiterate, what belief systems do you have about technology that are now informing and forming your reactions to technology when your children are on it? So watch yourself. I always say mind the mind. So mind your mind around technology use. What's worked for me is that I realized, as conscious as I am about it, and the fact that I've never seen technology as a threat, I became uncomfortable. And we never grow when we're comfortable. And the growth that came out of my discomfort was that I established a list of things that I need my kids to do, because I realized our conflict was taking away our connection. And the conflict was being formed because my kids were on technology, and I felt like the things they could be doing around the house were not getting done. So now we have a list, and I say, listen, ladies, these are the things I expect from you as members of our family to get done today. You must exercise because we need to be healthy. You must eat well, and you must contribute to the household. How you do it is up to you, but these things have to get done. When those things are done, you're free to be calling your friends, to be online, so that way they feel like they're in control and they manage their own time. That may not work for everyone, because that still allows for a lot of time on technology. So Barbie is absolutely right. I had to change my own mindset around technology, even though I had a good mindset about it. I was thrown off by all this virtual sleepovers, virtual play dates. And as fun as they are, and as engaged as I am as a parent, for instance, I love TikTok. My kids invite me, and I do feel like I use them. I still call it a tool, because I feel like my kids are being creative. But I did struggle. I think for a couple of weeks or so there, I did struggle with how much time was being spent on technology. And I had to remind myself of that. So to remember, as Bobby said, mind your mind and your mindset around technology. How can you choose connection over conflict with your children? Every moment that your child has is a moment for connection. So thank you for reminding me of that. I will also try to remember it.
Yeah, and the more you connect, the more they will be cooperative.
That's absolutely true.
Right.
And I also love how you said actually that criticizing what they're doing feels like personal criticism. And if you're criticizing what your kids are doing and how they're doing, they feel attacked and they feel like not just what they're doing is bad, they end up feeling bad. So that was a really great point for me. Was there any more you wanted to add actually before I hijacked you there?
Yeah, well, no, great recap, by the way. But also what we model, like we can't be on our technology all day long and then expect to control their technology, right? That
Yes.
we can't do that. That's not mutual respect, right? So being very aware of what we model. And I love the idea of coming up with a plan together with your children,
Yes.
involve them in the plan, right? I told my kids, I would like for you to spend some time outside in nature, move your body however you choose, and have some sort of connection with real people. And then whatever help around the house, right? But
Yes.
the more connected they are to you, and the more they feel respected by you, and that you respect
Yes.
their interest and their time, and give them some autonomy and control over what they do with their time, then when you do invite them to your interests and say, hey, you want to play a game, you want to build a puzzle, you want to cook dinner with me, right? And it's an invitation. Don't get offended if they say no, don't take it personal. Right? um, but they're more likely to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think I love that invitation and giving them autonomy because I came up with my own list and I felt like, no, I'm not sure they're responding well to this. I said, okay, you now know you've been home with, it's been locked down for a very long time.
Right.
How can you help around the house? And posing that question allowed them to say, hey, I can do this and I can do that. And so as long as they know that they need to contribute to their world, which is
Right.
at home with us now that everyone's working from home, I feel like we've made a lot of progress because they came up with a plan.
Yeah.
And so speaking of coming up with plans, while we're still on the topic of technology, I tend to involve them about how they present to the world as well. I stay
Mm-hmm.
away and I stay out of the teenage um, process up to a point. So I don't necessarily look at every TikTok my kid make, every Snapchat, but we do just have this trust that they're doing it well. I was I don't know if inspired is the right word, but I was really, this piece of news really stayed with me when I think I mentioned it to you about the 12-year-old that tweeted something racial and ended up being arrested. And it really implored me to come back to social media etiquette. How can we protect our children from themselves? Because you can be a great parent, you can be conscious, but at some point your children will make mistakes. And especially, I'm not really, as far as a mistake, I'm not referring to the racist tweet. I have to be very clear about that. When it comes to racism, I have zero tolerance. And by saying zero tolerance, I am not judging you. I am not closing my door to you. But what I'm saying to you as parents is that there is no room or place for racism of any kind. If you are prejudiced against a race, against religion, or anyone's sexuality or sexual orientation, that is a whole different subject. And I would really love to host a panel to talk about how we are being anti-racist and how we are raising children that recognize racism. But that's a different topic for a different live. So what I'd like to focus more on what best practices should parents have when it comes to social media use, because this is the platform we're on, this is how our children live and communicate. How can we teach them that what they post out there not only could come back to haunt them, but it's a negotiation and a contract and a bid for connection with the world, and that every post out there is a bid for connection, and that connection can be negative or positive, and worse, it could come back to haunt them. How do we have best practices around social media etiquette, Barbie?
Well, I think you said it beautifully. I mean, first and foremost, no matter how conscious we are, no matter what an amazing parent, because there's no such thing as a perfect parent, right? So
Yeah.
no matter how well we parent, our children will make mistakes. They will.
Yes.
Okay. It's like we were talking before we started recording about how my daughter just has been driving now for 2 weeks. And, I wish her well, and I do everything I can, but brand new drivers are going to have little dings and little, right? It's not about are they going to, it's when. And it's the same thing with technology and social media, right? It's not about are they going to they make a mistake, it's about when. And a few things, again, that connection is going to be your lifesaver. That connection is going to be, and those open conversations is going to be what's going to either help your child come to you when they make a mistake or hide from you when they make a mistake. And you find out when it's too late or when it's really serious, right? So having those open conversations and really telling your child, and not just saying it, but you have to follow through in, I'm here for you. I get you're going to make mistakes. You can come to me and I will help you figure it out. And really holding that space. And when they come to you, don't turn around and punish them. Okay. Because that's not holding that space. You're creating a wall, and I can assure you they won't come back to you ever again unless it's a dire emergency. So really, it's all about the connection. It's all about having those open conversations. And like you said, teaching them this is how you put yourself out in the world. I tell my kids, if you wouldn't say it to somebody's face or in front of your grandmother, then don't post it. If you
Yes.
wouldn't put your body in that position with that outfit on in front of your grandmother, then don't post it. My kids have a pretty liberal grandmother, so they have a lot of room, but but right, it's about respecting yourself. And again, it all comes back to the same thing. If you've taught your children respect, mutual respect, they will respect themselves, and they won't necessarily want to portray themselves in a negative light, right? But they will make mistakes. And so we're here to guide them and to have those conversations of guidance, open conversations about sexting, about inappropriate, pictures and language and all of it. It's all got to be put out on the table. We got to get uncomfortable, and we have to do it because no one else is going to do it. They're going to get the information from their teenage friends that is not going to be, very helpful. So with my kids, we had lots of open conversations. My kids got their first iPhone around the age of 12 it was a used phone. When we upgraded, we gave them our old phone, and it only had Wi-Fi for a while. So that they also really couldn't just like keep it in their pocket and go all over the place with it, right? There were limits. And there was no social media at first. It was really navigating how to communicate online with your friends through texting, through calling, through FaceTiming, right? And they had access to the internet, and we did, because it was Wi-Fi only, we were able to put some security on that Wi-Fi. My husband handles all that because he's the techie, but and then little by little we started opening up those boundaries, those limits, right? So at 13, then they were and we did monitor them in the beginning. I didn't read every single text. I didn't have like a program that gave me, but we would go in once in a while and check it. And they knew, this is your phone, but you're starting out. We have to have for safety access to your phone, and we will respect your privacy, but we will also be checking in. And I would even say, do it with your child. Don't do it behind their back, right? Say, let's check in, let's read some of these texts, let's see if there was a better way you could have responded, right? And a lot of times if they get in those heated texts where they're not sure how to respond, if you've had open conversations, they may even come to you for help and support, right? So really teaching them and then helping them set up their social media in the safest way possible, because there's no 100% safety, but in the safest way possible, helping them navigate that. And then at some point, you gotta let go. At some point, you have to trust you've done the best you can and trust your child and continue to have that open lines of communication, continue to have that connection so they feel that they can come to you if they get into a bind, if something happens that they're not sure how to navigate. My kids now have social media accounts that they have their private account that I'm not a part of. I'm a part of their public, not public because it's still private, but I'm invited to that one.
Yes.
And then they have their private one that it's only with their friends, and
that makes a lot of sense. And I think that we did something similar. We set it up with them. We started with just email, then they graduated on to social media. But even on social media, we followed them. And what transpired was that my kids sometimes, especially when they were much younger, they would just say, listen, Mom, someone responded this way. I'm not sure, that made me uncomfortable. And then we would just review it together. So I'm going to recap what you said, which is first, use everything for connection. But the big aha for me, big nugget there was, parents, create the relationship where your children can come to you. Kids, just like new drivers, will make mistakes. There will be the fender benders. You're hoping for the little bumps. So the idea here is to support them, to educate them, and to model it. And the best way to do that is to create that environment where your children trust you, where they build the trust from the beginning of that exposure to technology and social media. Then they just know, one, you've allowed them the bandwidth to make mistakes. And they know they're not expected to be perfect and to come to you. If you create an environment where your children cannot speak to you, it's not just social media, parents, it is everything. Your children may come to you when there's a true emergency, but when they have minor issues, they will not benefit from your wisdom, because they will just know that, one, you'll overreact, you'll chastise them, they will have consequences. So you have got to create an environment where your children come to you with anything that happens, whether it's social media related or not. So I absolutely loved that. Did you have anything else to add on social media and technology?
Yeah, one quick point there. They will become more tech savvy than you and me and all of us. Okay, they pick up this stuff in a heartbeat. So be aware of your illusion of control. Because if you're controlling, they will find a way around it. And there's a million ways to do that we have no clue, but they will find. And you will think you are in so much control, and they will be doing all kinds of things that you may not be okay with.
That is an excellent point. And as a mom who has a teenager, I am so ready for all this, because my eyes are wide open. These kids will circumvent anything to avoid you. especially if they feel the need to hide something from you. So I absolutely love that. Barbie, this has been amazing. So for anyone listening, I will be checking the comments on here, and I wanted to give Barbie the opportunity to talk to us. And as a conscious parent, as an educator, I know you have so much to share, but what are your top three nuggets? I always call them nuggets because my kids love nuggets, and nuggets are always fun. So what are your top three conscious teachings that you can impart to our audience before we finish off today?
So, I've talked a lot about connection, and I think that connection and awareness that the only person you can control is yourself. And the only thing you can control is your reaction to things. So keep that in mind. Trying to control anyone else or anybody else's reaction is going to get you nowhere. Stay in here in your heart and focus on what you can control, which is yourself and your reaction to things. That's number one. Number two, become intimate with your fears and your belief systems so that they're not driving you. Because trust me, I was there. My son at 7 years old said to me, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're trying to control me. Stop." And I was finally able to hear it and wake up. And that was my second awakening from my 4-year-old daughter, and say, I got to change. If I want a relationship with my children, I'm the adult. I'm the one that can change. I can't change anyone else. And last, but definitely not least, trust and unconditionally love yourself. Because then, and only then, can you trust and unconditionally love your child. It's an inside job, always and forever.
Wow, that was stunning, at least for me. Those were amazing aha moments. Parents, get intimate, befriend your fears, befriend your anxiety, basically clean your house, go inward, clean out. Your children need you to be the one that can step up. So this is not a dress rehearsal. Get conscious. If you need any help, I know so many coaches on this beautiful page that we've created together. But today I have one of the best. I have Barbie Jimenez. Barbie, do you have any offerings for parents out there? Do you have any classes? How do they find you? Why don't you take a moment to share anything that you have that could be beneficial to them?
Thank you. So the best way to find me is on my website, barbiejimenez.com. Remember, Barbie's with a Y at the end and Jimenez is with a J and a Z. So barbiejimenez.com will also have links to all my social media platforms where you can follow me. And I offer one-on-one coaching. I also offer group coaching, which I like to call Conscious Parent Group Coaching Circles. And on my website, you can go to Circle and get yourself on the waiting list, because there will be a new circle opening up soon. It's very intimate and they fill up fairly quickly. So we coach, we do it on Zoom. It's a sacred space where parents can ask questions and learn about conscious parenting. And actually on Wednesday, I just closed my membership, my Living Connected membership, which is a sacred space for moms who are on a journey to connect to their heart and to their inner power. And I'm opening it up for everybody on this page for 24 hours. So if you're interested in that, you can go to my website and go to where it says Living Connected, and you can join our community. And we will be talking about everything from being a mom to being a woman and everything in between, with body, mind, and soul in a sacred, safe environment. So I look forward to having many of them join in and be part of this amazing community.
Thank you so much. I will be offering links along with this video when we are done. Thank you so much, Barbie, for joining us today. Hope this was beneficial for everyone. It was so filling for me. And thank you all again for making this community what it is. I'm receiving so much positive feedback from all of you. It would not be the same without you. I'm going to keep providing mindful moments. I will keep providing all the news as it unfolds globally. I know it's a lot sometimes because it can be 5-6 posts a day, but we need to hear the diversity in the way that this virus is unfolding. I am always blessed because I have phenomenal speakers always wishing to speak with me, like Barbie here. And I hope this was a meaningful connection with all of you. Barbie, thank you. Thank you to everyone. If anyone would like to join us, come stumble and be mindful with us on this page. Everyone is welcome. Share this away. And with that, I would like to give you back your time. Thank you so much, Barbie. It's always a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much, Faiza.
Anytime. Thank you, everyone. And I'll be back next week with David Richards, and we will be talking education, and he will help us reimagine what education should look like for our children. Thanks, everyone.